It's dawn in Zimbabwe. I'm woken by the light as the sky becomes full of orange and pinks as the sun starts to rise. I unzip my tent. I'm wild camping on the banks of the Zambezi River. I've driven myself here in a 4x4. The African dawn chorus from the birds begins. I feel the gentle warmth of the day already. As the grunts from the hippos start to add to the noises, I feel a contented, exhilarated shiver as my body responds to the rawness of the moment and this assault on the senses. My body remembers. This, I think. This is what I choose to come for. And this is how I have survived all that I did not choose. When I landed back in the UK, it struck me that so many of us are so far from this. And I don't just mean literally. Day to day, you're so far from knowing, let alone remembering, just how powerful you are and how to access the resourcefulness that lives within you. And yet, these chosen adventures, like this one, have the power to literally save everyone's lives, just as they did mine. Now, for some of you, there might be a little eye roll here at the word adventure. Perhaps you have a set idea of what this is, or the sort of person that does them. But we all have adventures. Some of them we choose, like my trip to Zimbabwe. But many of them are unchosen. Day to day, we are all swirling around in a mass of adventures that we did not choose, just trying to stay afloat. These unchosen adventures can include things such as a tragic illness, or losing your job, or the painful end of a relationship. And we hear so much about protecting our well-being, and yet statistics show that our national well-being is extremely low. In the UK, we literally cannot afford to treat everyone who needs mental health support, and we have failed on our mental health targets. We have got to find a way to get upstream of this, to help ourselves and others before we get to the lowest stage. Research shows that chosen adventures can provide a way to do this, can provide resources for staying afloat. And yet, so few people make adventure part of their lives. We even use that phrase, a once-in-a-lifetime adventure, as if that's all you get, just one adventure. And even if you do one adventure, you very rarely return to it within ourselves. The problem is that instead of welcoming chosen adventure to teach ourselves safety and capability, our lives are full of things that we have invented to try and control every variable, reduce risk, and make things predictable. As the events from 2020 showed us, we have control over very little. Ironically, avoidance of risk puts us more at risk, as we are then less equipped to assess situations and deal with the unexpected, as we have little or no experience of doing so. But research shows that chosen adventures can help us with this. According to author Belinda Kirk, one of the definitions of adventure is that it must include 3 elements: challenge, adversity, and uncertainty. And when you choose adventure, it can help you to cope because it can hold the key to navigating your unchosen challenge, adversity, and uncertainty. And I'm going to explain how. It's 2019. I'm headed out to Thailand to learn to freedive, diving to 90 foot on just one breath with no breathing apparatus. But why is this significant? Well, early in 2019, I was diagnosed with stage 3B skin cancer. It had spread to my lymph nodes. I needed an operation to remove a large chunk of skin, followed by a year of chemotherapy in tablet form. I also had investigations to try to freeze some embryos, as I'm childless, following multiple miscarriages and operations. Except my body's conditions weren't good enough. I was told that, for me, I had a less than 2% chance of this procedure ever resulting in a live birth. And as I lay there, despondent, in deep physical and emotional pain as a result of this latest unchosen adventure, I chose the freediving. Now, this is not a talk that goes, I had a life-threatening illness which led me to an epiphany and made me change my life. Nope, absolutely not. In fact, my response to the cancer and related situation was pretty much a fairly graceless, "You have got to be kidding me." It was almost comical. You see, I'd already been through so much other trauma that I used to say that cancer was almost the least worst thing that had happened to me. So I wanted to know, what was it that drew me to seek adventure when I'd adventured many times before? I'd crossed the outback for 4 months in Australia. I'd hiked in Nepal. Why was this my response to this situation? And what was so powerful? It was this question that led me to some information from researchers which argued that extreme and adventure sports could actually be more useful than traditional interventions for encouraging adaptability and lifelong wellness. And if we consider the state of our national well-being, how many of us are in need of more adaptability and lifelong wellness, particularly when dealing with our unchosen adventures? I'm sure that many of you can relate. When you've had your own unchosen adventure, I bet you've had your own moment of, "Oh, come on, really?" It was these clues in the research that made me realize, oh, this is how I have survived all these tragic events. This capability is what adventure really gave me. I just didn't know it. I didn't initially seek adventure because of the unchosen things I was experiencing. I already had the benefits within me from my previous chosen adventures to draw on. And that was what saved me. Right now, I invite you all to think about unchosen adventure again. Think of some of those that you have had or may not wish to have. And now imagine if, no matter what was happening, in the midst of that, alongside the pain, the grief, the confusion, just imagine if you had this deep knowing that you would be okay and that you could cope. How would that make you feel? Perhaps it would get rid of some of those words that we use when we wonder about how we'd manage, like, "I can't," or "It's not possible for me," or "I don't know how I'll get through this," or "I'm too old." And perhaps instead of these words, whilst you may not know how, you do have this knowing because you have previously developed these skills, these capabilities, and this knowing. And perhaps you're able to say to yourselves, this is how I can survive all that I did not choose. But so few people have done or even want to do a chosen adventure that could teach you the skills and courage needed. And often it is precisely because these chosen adventures include risk and things beyond our control that stop us choosing them. So we must get upstream of this. Choosing adventure becomes one of the greatest tools for building strength and capability and managing anxiety because it teaches you that despite how little control you have, how much power and influence you do have, and that you can cope. You have the evidence. Challenge, adversity, uncertainty. When you choose adventure, your everyday life transforms. I recently did a 2-day, 90-kilometre bike-packing adventure with someone who had previously never ridden for more than 10 kilometres on their bike before. And afterwards, she said to me, "This has reminded me that I can. And I want that feeling for everyone." Choosing adventure doesn't have to be huge, doesn't have to be expensive. It just needs to include those 3 elements for you: challenge, adversity, uncertainty. And choosing adventure will look different for everyone. It can be anything from riding a bike for the first time in 20 years to hiking across the Himalaya, from starting a new hobby to going to see an endangered creature in its natural habitat, from camping somewhere a little different to diving in an exotic location. It is anything that stretches your mind and body from what you currently know, but not having an adventure, not an option. The unchosen ones will appear. Some of the wisest words that I ever heard came from my best friend as she was dying at age just 36. And she said, "I am not cancer, Charlotte, and you are not miscarriages." It was a beautiful reminder that a different way of being and seeing ourselves is possible for us all to choose. I often ask myself, without adventure, where would I be? And so I invite you all to go. Choose an adventure. Choose something that transports you from your version of "you have got to be kidding me" to this. This is how I have survived all that I did not choose.